You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Just the tips.
Just the tips?
Stops those split ends, lickety-split. Look at those ends, they are amending.
Now that's what I call a happy ending.
Red Kit ABC, Hair Bandage Balm.
Score more with the college-branded Venmo debit card and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash. Got paid back? With the Venmo debit card, you can instantly access your balance and spend on what you want, like game day snacks, gear, tickets, and more. The more you do, the more cash back you can earn. Plus, there's no monthly fee or minimum balance. Sign up now at Venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
This episode is brought to you by our Patreon members. Thank you so much.
Join our Patreon for extra episodes, interviews, extra content, and to help support the podcast and help us continue to do the work we do.
Go to patreon.com/ancienthistoryfangirl to learn more.
Christine, you can do better.
I'm Jenny Williamson.
And I'm Jen McMenemy.
And this is Ancient History Fangirl. So we are so thrilled to welcome to the podcast best-selling author Angela J. Ford. Angela is the author of over 30 books, mostly steamy fantasy romance, including the Tower series, Lore of Nomadia, The Night of the Dark Fae trilogy, Chronicles of the Four Worlds, and Legend of the Nameless One series. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here.
We are thrilled to have you. I have been looking forward to this conversation for ages.
Same.
So, how did you get started writing romance? This is a question I've been asking everybody. What is your smutty origin story?
Oh, wow. Okay. So I actually started out writing epic fantasy, and along the way, I realized that I really enjoyed the romantic elements in writing a lot of that. And so I had the opportunity to be part of an anthology. The focus of that anthology, I had to write a book that the plot was centered around romance. And so that was really the first time writing those 10 to 15,000 words that was all centered on romance. And I did it, and I absolutely loved it. I was like, the story just flowed so much faster for me. It was easier to write. Like, I'm obsessed with this. And I thought about it and I was like, well, I'm going to try it out and start writing more romance and see how that goes. And the reaction from my audience was incredible. Like, all of a sudden the books were so much easier to sell, which is always a huge win. And it was much easier to write. The writing became faster and I absolutely loved it. And so I was like, I'm going to do more of this. I'm going to write more romance, get the steam in there, and really just enjoy it. And so that's kind of how it started.
I worked for many years in the UK in British publishing, and my specialization was fantasy and YA. And I have always preferred a lot of spice and steam to my fantasy. I love a great romantic thread tying everything together. I just think it just makes the book so much more enjoyable.
I found that even when I'm reading, as long as there's a strong romantic thread, I really enjoy the book a lot more. And so I think when I'm thinking about the books, I'm like, well, I don't necessarily read a lot of epic fantasy. Like, it's where I started, but it wasn't something that I feel very compelled to read. I'd rather just read more romance, more mystery, more thriller. And so if I can combine all of that together into the books, it's perfect.
I definitely feel like my origin story is a little bit similar too, because I was really obsessed with fantasy as a kid. Like, I was a Tolkien person before it was common to be a Tolkien person. And I remember thinking, this needs kissing. Like, there's no kissing.
It needs female characters, but that's a whole nother story.
We'd have to get to that hurdle before you actually have like a viable romance. I don't think Tolkien was up to that challenge.
I just love, Angela, you just have so much joy when you talk about this, and it just makes me so happy. Your books are filled with that joy, and it just is so great to hear the passion you have for making fantasy and mysteries a little romantic, a little spicy.
Thank you. It's just so much fun. And, with writing, I always come from the approach that I want to write the stories that I want to read and that are fun. And I want that really cozy, happy ending at the very end too. I don't want to be left heartbroken or like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? And so I think that comes across in my writing.
I was going to say, are you team happily ever after, happy for right now, or, tragic love story? I know which one I am.
I have enjoyed the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet. That is just a fantastic, tragic love story. I think because both of them died at the end. And so in my book, that meant they were together versus like one being left alone to deal with like the fallout of this whole scandalous relationship. But in general, I am team happily ever after.
That's sort of like my price of admission, right? Like, I want to know everything's going to be okay because life doesn't work out that way. So why camp romances?
I'll take it happy for now. I don't mind because I love to see two trains collide and explode and be like, I'm not sure if this is viable long term, but they're happy for now. Like, I enjoy that.
You mean train wrecks of people, not actual trains?
Well, yeah. I mean, metaphorically speaking. So, Angela, what were some of your early smutty inspirations? Were there any romance books that you absolutely devoured and that inspired you to write romance?
That is a great question. I can't really think off the top of my head that there were ones that were like particularly smutty that really inspired me. I know that I absolutely loved reading Sarah Addison Allen. She writes more like speculative fiction, and she always has like this kind of magical element in it. And then there is a very strong romance plot line. And I have devoured her books. I absolutely love them. The romance is just like light enough, but it just makes you just obsessed with it. And so I love her work. It is just absolutely beautiful. And so that's kind of where I started. Like now, today, if you were like to ask me like, okay, like what authors are you obsessed with? I believe it's Abby Jimenez, who did Part of Your World, Just for the Summer, those books, incredible. I absolutely love her writing. And it's interesting because it's contemporary romance, and I've not gotten into contemporary romance until recently. Like that is a very recent thing for me. And so it's a lot different reading it, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving it. It's very inspirational. And then I will say I also love a good romantic suspense. One of my favorite romance authors that I found via Kindle Unlimited is Melissa Foster. I absolutely love her stuff, and she has so many books, and they're all kind of like interconnected. And so the series that I read recently was about three sisters, and they kind of lived on this island, and it was just about how they find love. And so I love those vibes too, because they are stories that go together, but they're also standalones, and they're about like a different couple each time, but they're all set in like the same location, similar location. And so there's overlap. Like every now and then she'll mention like a different couple, and I'm like, ooh, I bet there's a book about them I can go read. It's just so interconnected, like just goals for me right there.
I'm so happy to hear you mention Sarah Addison Allen. She's just so... Her books, they're romantic, but the romance is there, but they're just so beautiful. Like I remember reading Garden Spells and just being like, wow, this is just such a great book.
Yes, that just gorgeous. And I love the writing. Like I think one of the things that really gets me is just beautiful writing. Like Patricia McKillop, I read a lot of her books just because the writing is absolutely gorgeous and it's very beautiful. And so that is something that I fall in love with every time.
So my introduction to your books was Music of the Night, which is a standalone romance inspired by the Phantom of the Opera. I have a history with Phantom of the Opera myself since childhood. When I was a kid, maybe, I don't know, this might have been middle school or early high school, I got my hands on a original cast recording of the Phantom of the Opera on Broadway with Sarah Brightman and Michael Crawford, and I completely fell in love with this story. And in my head, this was a romance between the Phantom and Christine. And this is around the time when I discovered romance novels. So I was pretty sure this was like a romance novel in musical form. And the Phantom was clearly the hero.
I thought the same, Jenny, because I had the same reaction. I had just the recording, and I was convinced the Phantom was the hero.
Right. This confused a generation of preteen girls, I think. And when I saw the show in theaters for the very first time, I was very confused. I was like, well, why did they make the Phantom the villain? This is weird. I got the sense that we are both clearly two girlies who fell for the Phantom and not Raoul. And I wanted to ask you, what was it that drew you to this story?
Okay, so I remember I was going through a phase when I was reading through all the classics.
Same. For my 13th birthday, I read all of the unabridged Les Mis. And I grew up on Long Island, and I went to go see Les Mis, and my entire, like, my mom and my grandma and stuff had gone with me. They were so bored, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. I wish they had the 2,000 more pages that was cut.
Yeah, okay, awesome. All right, so you get it. So I was working on that. And I mean, I kind of started with Jane Austen and then I wanted to move into some other things. And so I grabbed Phantom of the Opera and I read it. And that was my introduction to it. And I was like, that did not go the way that I thought it was going to go. I was like, Raoul, like he felt like a weak character to me. And, I'm a huge fan of like a man, like a macho man, like, like you go out there and you get what you want. And I understand that the situation was incredibly frustrating, but I just did not think it was very manly of him to just like break down and start crying because he was so frustrated because of what was going on. And so, Christine, you can do better. Like the Phantom is obviously the one, he's teaching you how to sing. And I have a very musical background. And so music, it just moves me in different ways. And I absolutely loved it. And I remember I watched the movie, Amy Rosen and Gerard Butler. And I watched that and like the music is just incredible. And I've seen the show and just like sitting there, like feeling the music just fill you up is the most incredible thing. And I was like, there has to be a story where the Phantom gets the girl. And I was like, well, I might as well just like write it. I will write something that, just kind of like follows that line. And instead of ending up with Raoul, she ends up with the Phantom. And so that was the whole kind of like inspiration and ideal behind Music of the Night. And it was just so fun to write. Like I was trying to write, it was funny because it was around Halloween when I was like sitting down to actually write it. And I remember I was like, I need something that's like dark and, just like kind of gothic and has those like vibes. And yeah, that was where it all started.
This episode is brought to you by Palmolive. Family time isn't just the big moments. It's weeknight dinners, sitting around the table, everyone talking all at once. So when the plates are empty and the sink is full, use Palmolive Ultra. Palmolive's most powerful formula removes up to 99.9% of grease, leaving your dishes sparkling clean. And the new convenient pump makes cleaning even easier, so you can spend less time tackling dishes and more time together. Shop now at palmolive.com.
We all have that dream trip we've been wishing we could go on, but too often life, or usually price, gets in the way. That's why Priceline is here to help you turn your dream trip into reality. With up to 60% off hotels and up to 50% off flights, you can book everything you need for your next adventure. Don't just dream about that next trip. Book it with Priceline. Download the Priceline app or visit Priceline.com and book your next trip today.
Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Experience a membership that backs what you're building with American Express Business Platinum. Enjoy complimentary access to the American Express Global Lounge Collection and a welcome offer of 200,000 points after you spend $20,000 on purchases on the card within your first 3 months of membership. American Express Business Platinum. There's nothing like it. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum.
What do we actually know about the real-life history beyond the Phantom of the Opera?
Yeah, so that is a great question. I do remember reading it about it being about an opera house and just these mysterious occurrences happening. And I think there are a lot of things in history that are unexplained, where there's something mysterious that is happening, and it's very natural for us to want to figure it out or write about it or really have a solution or an answer to like, this is why this is going on. And so I remember reading the book and they were talking about the things that happened. I was like, this feels very real. Like it's something that actually could have happened. And if I went to that opera house, I could find out more about it. And it would just have that aura of mystery around it. I went and studied abroad in Ireland for about a week. And I remember going to the different sites around it and walking among like the ruins and walking into castles. And there was just a vibe there, unlike anything I'd ever felt. And I was like, I can tell that this place is very old. I can tell that it has a lot of history. And if the stones could talk, they could have stories to tell. And that's what it felt like reading Phantom of the Opera. It was like if I went to this opera house, like I could sit down and listen. It's almost like the ghost of the past would be there telling that story. And so, yeah, that's really kind of what struck me from the book.
I've been to the Paris Opera House, which I believe is the opera house in the Phantom of the Opera. Like, I think it's the actual opera house. And there is a lake underneath the opera house. There really is. I think it's like a really big cistern or something, but like really old. And firefighters use it in like firefighting practice, apparently. So that is like the one tidbit that I know. I'm sure there's other stuff out there that like I would love to dig into at one point.
That is so cool. Yeah, that would be just incredible to go there.
What is it? And I'm just dying to ask you this because I have real thoughts, but I want to hear your thoughts. What is it about the Phantom that we all find so sexy?
Yeah, okay. So I love this question because I love thinking about stories that get a reaction out of me and why they got that reaction out. And so just thinking about it, one thing that I'm obsessed with is the forbiddenness of it. Like it is something that is not cool, it's not sexy, it's a little scary, it's a little forbidden. And it's kind of like stepping across into that danger. There's something very compelling about that. And then there's also, in addition to the forbiddenness, there's also the mystery of it. Like it just felt like he was this elusive shadow character. We don't see his face. He has that mask. And I think that just draws up the natural curiosity within us to want to know, okay, what is going on? I want to know what's under the mask. What does this man really look like? We know that has this incredible voice, but I want more. And so I think that also alludes to it. So the mystery and the forbiddenness just made it so exciting. And then the third thing that stands out to me is just like how he had no shame in making his demands on the opera house. He was like, hey, there are new owners here. And, like I need this, and this done for me. Like he was the one that was powerful there. And he was the one that was kind of instigating and making these moves. And so that also was just there's just something very attractive about that.
The Phantom is hot and he's brazen, and I completely agree with you. And I kind of feel like that story, if you take it at, as we all did, face value, where we think that the Phantom is some kind of a villainous romance hero, that's very dark romancy. He's kind of like he kidnaps Christine and there are these unconsensual singing lessons going on or something. It's that darkness. And I think that this is something that draws me to dark romance in general is the danger of it and the passion of it. We had a conversation with Savar Miller. We were talking about how, like, this is a man who will do terrible things for the person that he loves. So you see a little bit of that in him too, right?
Yeah, you definitely see that. And one of the other things was that it wasn't a one-way street. It wasn't like Christine was getting nothing out of this deal. Like she was getting her dream. She wanted to sing. She believed that her father was going to send her the angel of the music to teach her after he died. And so that's exactly what she got. And so I also like that about it. It's like she's getting what she wants and he's getting what he wants. And they're kind of using each other to get this. That also was just really interesting. And when I wrote Music of the Night, I definitely alluded to the fact that it wasn't a one-way street. It's two of them, like both working to get what they want and not realizing that there's something else underneath it.
One of the things that I love about Phantom of the Opera is it has like a Beauty and the Beast feel to it as well. And if you can like give me Beauty and the Beast vibes, I'm always here for it. Like, well, what does he look like under the mask? And could I just overcome all of these obstacles and love this man for his beautiful voice?
That's so true. I was watching Disney's Beauty and the Beast again, and I was thinking about it. I was like, I watched this one as a kid, and like you don't think about it when you're young and you're watching it, and then as you get older and you watch it, you're like, this has a lot of themes that are not appropriate for kids. And wow, like it's fascinating, but it's one that I think we're all obsessed with.
The Beauty and the Beast, particularly the Disney one, is super problematic. I've been reading with my sister-in-law the A Court of Thorns and Roses books, and the first one is very much a Beauty and the Beast retelling. And the entire time I'm just like, oh boy, he's got all these red flags, girl. You need to run. And I think she did a good job of showing you, like, maybe sometimes you should run from the beast.
These are things that we potentially grew up with as children, and we're like, now we romanticize it, and maybe we shouldn't. But also, it's a fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually is a good one. And I do think that it is important to note that, these things are fiction and they're fantasy, and we probably would not be thrilled if we found ourselves in these characters' places in the real life. We would not be happy. But it's great to read about. And that's what I love so much about writing and books and like theater and music and creativity. We can imagine ourselves somewhere else and in this situation, but that's definitely not reality. And that's the point of it. It is to indulge in this something that is not reality, that kind of like takes us away from our everyday life. And that is the beauty of it.
Exactly. I mean, I think that in real life, there are definitely reasons why you don't want to get with a dangerous partner, right? But there's something so compelling about that. And literature, artwork, theater, all of that gives us a safe way to explore those fantasies, So I think that there's value in that. And I've always been drawn to it and always loved it. And I think you do such a great job in your Phantom of the Opera retelling. And I wanted to ask you too, what tropes did you use in Music of the Night, your version, that maybe capitalized on things you were picking up from the original story? And how did you change the story?
Yeah, so one of the things that I try to keep very similar is the fact that there is a mystery behind this man. And so he definitely still wears the mask. He's very elusive. He's kind of this character that you want to know more about just because he lives in a tower that's set apart from the town. And a lot of people believed the music that they heard coming from the tower was an actual ghost. And so in Phantom of the Opera, they do mention the Phantom as the opera ghost. And so in my retelling, I had, the tower and the music coming from it is created by a ghost. And so it's not real. And so, of course, when Arya goes out to the tower because she's following the music, she discovers that it's actually a man, and that's very mysterious. And then some of the tropes that I did include was also the forbiddenness of it, just because it's just not appropriate in that culture and that time, just to be running after this like very strange man that is not part of society at all, and we don't know very much about him. And so there was that. And then one of the ways I made it different was I definitely still had like the opera house and that vibe going on there. Kind of made it a bit more of an exotic place, a little bit more forbidden, and a place where people would come to like really just indulge in their fantasies. And so lots of parties. I didn't write too much about that, but just mainly alluded to it because I wanted to focus more on the romance. But I did also keep like the mystery in there, and people are dying. So there's a bit of like a murder mystery piece to it and some suspense. So trying to figure out who is responsible for these murders is a big part of it. And of course, you're supposed to think that the Phantom is responsible for it because, he's that one person that is outcast from society, but there is a deeper story going on there.
Did you incorporate any mythological traditions into your retelling of Phantom of the Opera that are pre-existing?
I don't think that I did in this one, which is interesting because I had just come off like focusing on like different mythologies and just different things that were going on in kind of some of my other books, like just different holidays that are based around like pagan holidays. And so I'm pretty sure I didn't include any of that in Music of the Night. I did allude to like some things, but yeah, I don't think I went there.
So your newest book, Mage Bride, is out as of, I think, June 11th. I haven't gotten a chance to read this one as it just came out, but it is definitely on my list. Tell us a little bit about this story and your mythological influences for it. What were some tropes that you work with in Mage Bride that you love and are excited about?
Yeah, so I am absolutely thrilled about this story. It was so much fun to write. So this actually kind of takes me back a few years. I was part of a multi-author series where we wrote about stolen brides. And the short story that I contributed to that collection was called Stolen Ice Bride. And it was really kind of set in this mountainous, kind of like icy region. And readers loved it. And they kept telling me they wanted more like ice Vikings. They were like, we want more ice Vikings, more Bay Vikings. I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. And so I was sitting down to write this story and I was like, okay, we're going to go with like, Viking inspired. We're going to set it in like a snowy setting. And then also I wanted to bring in the arranged marriage trope because that's really fun. And I really played with it. It's pretty ridiculous, but I probably spent about 3 months writing the beginning of the book over and over again.
I know that feeling.
Well, I was really trying to figure out the main character and how she fit into it. And so when I first started out, I was like, well, she's going to go north. And I really didn't have any reason for her to go north. And I was like, well, this is lame. We need to force her into like going north to like marry this ice lord. And so I came up with the ideal that, you know what, she should be like a mage who uses water magic. So that little piece is inspired by Frozen. And so she's a mage. She's very powerful. She uses water magic. And she did the one thing that she was not supposed to do. It is against the law to use blood magic. And so she used blood magic, or also known as dark magic, as she got into trouble with the Academy of Mages. So she's given really two choices. One, she can go to the dungeons for 10 years and just rot there, or she can go to this barbaric, savage Iceland that, no one has ever gone to, and she can go up there and help the Ice Lords with their problem. And so, of course, she's like, no one wants to live in a dungeon. So she's like, I will go help the Ice Lords. And when she's on her way, she's about to take her flight up there. She also gets the unfortunate news that she has to marry an Ice Lord. And so, of course, she gets on her flight by dragon and she's headed up there. And of course, like it's all, just different thoughts like, how can I get out of this arranged marriage? And so that is the premise of the story. And so, yes, lots of Viking vibes, lots of magic, lots of adventure. And then one of the things that I really dialed up in this one was really the mystery element to it. And so there's a lot more. You'll definitely want to figure out who did it.
I love that the problem up north is that this very handsome and dangerous Viking lord is single.
Deal with that.
I mean, please give me that problem.
How do you incorporate mythology into your romance more generally? And what would you say is your main mythological influence?
Ooh, okay. This is a good one. So main influences, I would say, would just be a lot of like Irish, Scottish, Norse mythology. That really has been a huge influence. And I think that's really because those were a lot of books that I read when I was growing up. And so I feel really comfortable kind of like drawing inspiration from those. They're like really popular too. Yeah. And so like you'll see kind of like those stories that I write that just kind of like allude to or weave in different mythologies from those kind of inspirations. Was there a second part to the question?
What was your main mythological influence for Mage Bride? But it's the same thing, right?
Yeah, so this was more like Nordic culture, more Norse. I did not want to get like too deep into like the myths. I wanted to kind of like build something new with the layers, but I definitely included like rune magic and runes and being able to read those. That felt like it was very important to Viking culture. And so I included that. And then I also included the, just the different weapons that they used. And so, all the Ice Lords, they carry the axes. They have different kinds of those. So it's just a really fun way to get into the world and not have to start everything from scratch. And so one thing that I've started doing is world building is really interesting, but I often get a little bored with it, or it gets like very like dense to me. And so that's why I do read a lot less fantasy, because I don't like the dense world building. I like it to be something that is familiar to me. And so because of that, when I do go into the world building, I try to make it as familiar to the reader as possible. Myths and legends are really fun, and I love those, but I try not to get like too deep into like the nitty gritty of things, just because I don't enjoy it. And I know that other readers do, and that's totally fine. And there are lots of other books out there that will definitely have, that really dense world building.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of what you're doing in books like this too, part of it has a suspense element, but it also has like a romantasy element. And I feel like the romantasy element kind of necessitates that like you have to build a magic system. You have to do some of that world building. So like, it's almost like if you're taking your inspiration from existing mythologies, it's almost a shorthand that feels familiar to the audience already. So I think that I've heard from some authors that it's almost easier to sell if people already understand the world. Does that make sense?
Definitely makes sense. And I would absolutely say that books are much easier to sell if there is something that is familiar to readers that can hook them. I think that's why tropes are so popular, because if you say like, hey, I've got an arranged marriage, fast-paced fantasy adventure with, a low spice romance, that means more to a reader than saying like, hey, I've got this story about an ice lord and a water mage. And then they're like, okay, that sounds cool, but the fast-paced arranged marriage story sounds more enticing because you get an ideal of what it is and it's already familiar to you. You already know what that means. And so definitely I would say like making sure you add in that familiarity really helps. And that also helps with like actually completing a book. I know there are lots of books that I've started that I haven't finished. And a lot of times it's because I just didn't connect with the characters. The world building felt way too dense. Like those are like huge reasons for me. And the story didn't feel like it was going anywhere. And so I know that I do write fast-paced stories because that is what I enjoy. And so there we go. I'm my own number one customer. Thank you.
You walk into a candlelit room where a girl in a feathered mask greets you. Her identity is one of your city's best-kept secrets. No one is supposed to know a nightbird's true face. And that isn't why you came. You came for this girl's rare and highly illegal form of magic. She's about to gift it to you with a kiss, and you know it will be worth the price. Hi, Ancient History Fangirl listeners. I'm Kate Armstrong, and you might know me as the host over on The Exploress, a podcast where we time travel through history to find out what life was really like for women of the past. Welcome to the world of Nightbirds, my 1920s tinted fantasy novel, which you can buy now wherever good books are sold. I'm popping in to tell you that its sequel, Firebirds, hit shelves on August 27th. If you like female-focused stories with lots of historical inspiration, glittering settings, and intrigue, I think this one might just be for you. So, be careful who you kiss, and fly carefully.
Planning a wedding shouldn't feel overwhelming. The Knot brings everything together in one place. Vendors who get your vibe, a custom planning checklist, guest list tools, and a free wedding website that syncs with it all. So instead of juggling a dozen apps and spreadsheets, you can actually enjoy getting married. Get started at theknot.com/audio. The Knot. Let's plan your wedding together.
So good, so good, so good.
Spring styles are at Nordstrom Rack stores now, and they're up to 60% off. Stock up and save on Rag & Bone, Madewell, Vince, All Saints, and more of your favorites.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Why do we rack? For the hottest deals. Just so many good brands.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
You've written 30 books, which is just astounding. It's incredible to me, like over 30 books. I can't believe it. How has the advent of social media, author marketing, which now really focuses heavily on laying out what the tropes are and letting readers know what they're getting in the book, like in enemies to lovers or forced proximity or arranged marriage, how has that kind of shorthand changed the way you market and think about your books?
Yeah, in some ways it's been helpful. In some ways it hasn't been helpful, just because it almost feels like readers want to know, give me everything that's going to happen so that I can decide to read the book, versus like, oh, this book is coming out and I want to go on an adventure, so let me read it and discover the book for myself. I think there has to be a balance between giving enough information but not giving it all away. And so I think really focusing on maybe not just like one trope, but really having an explanation for what, like just like a short, like one sentence for what the book is about is really helpful. And so if I tell people about Mage Bride, I always try to talk about the fact that it's an arranged marriage between a water maid and an ice lord, and it's fast paced and it's action adventure and it has like an element of mystery. And, you know, it does have like some steam in it. And so those things I think really help them kind of give them an entry point into the story versus having them rely on just the fact that it's an arranged marriage and because you don't know. And then the same thing with like enemies to lovers, like that phrase has been used a lot. And I think it's great when you have like the tension between the two characters. But I almost think that enemies to lovers has been overused to like encapsulate everything when that's not really what it is. And so having more explanation around like the level of enemies to lovers that it is, maybe it's rivals to lovers, maybe they're not actually enemies, but just having like more details around that is helpful because it helps with the reader expectation, because they might set the expectation that this is on the level that A Court of Thorns and Roses is on. This is on the level that From Blood and Ash is on. And so if you make that assumption about every single book, then you're setting yourself up for disappointment. And so I think tropes are helpful, but they have to be used in the right way to kind of avoid disappointing the reader.
Yeah, because I think that readers will bring their own assumptions to each one of those tropes as well. I know, like, I'm a huge enemies to lovers person. It's potentially my favorite trope ever. And I'm so interested in your discussion of, like, degrees of enemies to lovers. What would you consider, like, a false enemies to lovers trope, where it seems like it's being set up as enemies to lovers, but it's not actually that?
So I think a lot of times, you know, let's take Romeo and Juliet. So Romeo and Juliet, they're from like these warring clans. And so there's this stigma between them that like, you know, they will never come in contact with each other because they are enemies. Their families are enemies. But that to me would be a false enemies to lovers because Romeo and Juliet never had tension between them. They never came at each other and were like, you know, no, this is never going to happen. What they had was like this instant attraction. And so I would say that like anything where they're set up and like maybe their circumstances would portray them to be enemies, but when they actually meet each other, they like each other instantly. I think that would be a false enemies to lovers. Because for me, when I'm looking for enemies to lover, I'm looking for like that tension between the characters and the fact that they do not like each other at all. And that comes across very clearly in the book. And so I think as long as there's very clear tension between the two potential lovers, and then they kind of grow into that thing where they realize that, oh my gosh, we're way more similar than I thought. We actually like each other and it just came across wrong. Or maybe like take Pride and Prejudice, where Elizabeth Bennet meets Mr. Darcy and like they just have like this whole miscommunication because he was kind of like a shy person in public and he didn't know the right things to say. And so he just came off as this like super rude, arrogant man. Like I definitely would say that would be like a more of a true enemies to lovers, just because we did have that tension. We did have that like misunderstanding of like the nature of who he was and who she was. And there were assumptions that were made on both sides that were incorrect. And so just that sort of thing.
I like your point about Romeo and Juliet. They are one of my least favorite tropes, which is the insta-love trope. Like it can be done really well, but I've so few examples where I'm like, oh yeah, I get it. Like I find insta-love really tough for me. But then I'm an embittered millennial. What do I know?
Yeah, I think it does have to be done well. I tend to like that trope, but maybe I would say that like I understand like an instant attraction, but it has to go beyond that. And so if it doesn't go beyond that, then we have some issues.
Oh yeah, instant attraction I'm here for. And I can see insta-love in like a fated mate fantasy world, but just like in a contemporary, I'm like, you're going to have to work hard to make me believe he could or she could fall in love with this person immediately, because I've never seen that happen in real life.
I tend to be more of a slow burn person because I like being tortured. But I feel like I want to stand up for insta-love a little bit because I have maybe never seen it happen in real life. And I think that is part of the magic and fantasy of it. Like when it's done well and I believe it does feel very magical. It's like a high risk, high reward sort of a trope, in my opinion.
Yeah, that actually, so my favorite trope is forbidden love. And most of the time with forbidden love, there is that instant attraction. And one of the things that makes it even more delicious is the fact that they're not supposed to be together. And so it just makes them almost want to be together more because like everything around them is pushing them apart and they are the only ones putting themselves together. I love that vibe.
Absolutely. I think forbidden love is very sexy. And if you do have like two characters who feel the insta love, they're working against a current that they have to overcome if they have everything in their society or, their circumstances driving them apart. It's almost in a way the opposite of enemies to lovers, because in enemies to lovers, a lot of the time you have two people who just cannot stand each other, but they're being pushed together through forced proximity and their situation. So I wonder if those two, like there has to be an equal and opposite thing, either pulling the characters apart or pushing them together for these tropes to really sing.
See, I disagree with you. I think enemies to lovers can definitely have a subset that is forbidden love. I think it really can, because that forbidden romance, it's like, oh no, I'm supposed to hate this person. I do hate this person, but I don't, but I want this person, but it's forbidden,
Yeah, okay, I can see both sides of this. And I think that's what makes writing so much fun because there are so many layers to it. And I think we've just proven that it's really hard to just come out with a trope and be like, this book is enemies to lovers, because there are so many layers. And that's what makes the reading of it so incredible. And sometimes I feel like tropes are almost spoilers. Like it can almost like spoil the experience because you gotta know everything that happens. Like, do they become lovers? Does something else happen? And it can make books almost predictable, but maybe that's what we're looking for. And I almost feel like COVID and everything that happened with the pandemic also kind of like pushed us more towards like wanting more answers up front, because there was this loss of control in our lives. And so the only place where we really could control it was like what we pick up and read and what we spend time enjoying. And so there was more of that, like, I want to know if this is going to end well, if it's going to be cozy, if it's, if I'm going to be stressed out, because my life is really stressed out right now. So I don't want to be stressed out and read a book that stresses me out. And so I wonder how much that also plays into, readers' expectations and what they're looking for and what they want when it comes to a book, and like knowing all these tropes.
I think it's quite possible, like we're all kind of looking for comfort in our familiar reads. But I also feel like what you said is really true. Like the tropes, outsiders to romance can look at our obsession with these tropes and say like, oh, romance is just so formulaic and there's just these tropes that you line up and that's your story. And it's not true, because there are so many different ways to make these tropes work. And I feel like for me, for my book, looking back on it, like I don't know that I could have identified what tropes I was, except enemies to lovers, obviously, like what tropes I was going to use or what tropes are at work here until after the fact and after I'd done it, like it wasn't something I was necessarily aiming for.
Yeah, and I will say, going back to the COVID of it all, like pre-COVID, I was definitely like, I don't want to be spoiled. But I remember listening to an audiobook of romance, and I went down a huge Reddit rabbit hole because there was a dog in the book. And if you want to lose me as a reader, have anything bad happen to a dog or cat or pet, like that's it, I'm out. I can't. So I had to find out if this dog was going to be okay. And they were. And I remember being very upset that it was not on the author's website, that the dog is fine. Like, I was like, why? I don't need to know what happens or anything else. I just need to know this or else I'm out.
Yeah, I remember that trope, don't kill the dog. And, it's funny because I was watching John Wick and I was like, the first thing they did, so
and you have to get on board with it. Like, either you're okay with it or you're not.
Yeah. I mean, that was the plot of the movie. So, yeah.
And it may be because so much of my childhood in the 90s was these horrible books written about like Stone Fox and Where the Red Fern Grows, where the dogs just get brutally killed or die of whatever. And you're just like, I can't handle this. Like, as an adult, it's too much.
Yeah, that is very traumatic. And Jenny, just to like allude to what you said about writing and like finishing the book and then realizing like, oh, these are the tropes involved in it. I think that's very true. Like when I sit down to write, I definitely don't go like, okay, these are the 10 tropes I'm going to put in the book. Like they just kind of develop naturally. And I do have to say, I think there is something for focusing on the story and writing it and then realizing like, oh yeah, this is so marketable and I put in everything that I would love in the story. And so readers are absolutely going to eat this up. Like, I think it's just something that we instinctually do. No one has to tell us like, this is how you make sure you have the tropes in your story. But it is nice to kind of think about it too. And so, yeah, that's something where sometimes when I'm writing, I'm like, okay, well, there's going to be an arranged marriage. That's pretty easy. But everything else, like it doesn't come to the surface until like I start digging into the story and going through the layers and realizing like, oh yeah, there is this political tension here. I didn't even realize it, but there it is.
So we were talking a little bit about tropes you love, forbidden love being foremost. And I was just wondering when we were talking about, marketing and tropes that people highlight in their book marketing, what are maybe 3 or 4 of those that will instantly have you buying that book?
Oh, that's really good. So I'm kind of a hard sell. Most of the time when I see the books, I'm like, well, yeah, like that's what everyone puts. And so usually if there's something that is unusual, that will get my attention. And I believe the book Assistant to the Villain, just the way it was kind of like written out, the blurb, the marketing for that, I thought that was perfect. And that got my attention because it wasn't what everyone normally puts. It was more like, okay, like job wanted. It was like the assistant wanted, and it kind of just like listed out the qualities needed in an assistant to a villain like that. I mean, that was just gold. That was just beautiful. So just things that are unusual. A lot of times I will actually take a look at the first page of the book to see if it hooks me, because I am a big like first liner. So like the first line of a book, if that can get me, I mean, I'm good. I'm currently reading Divine Rivals right now, and I think I have like 3 chapters left. And it's hilarious because I did not read the blurb. I actually recently went back and I read the blurb and I was like, huh, interesting.
When you want your spring break to feel like, and your kids' pool day to feel like, and your hotel bed to feel like, ooh, and room service to feel like, because at Hilton, hospitality feels like...
Your cabana's ready. Would you like fresh towels?
It matters where you stay. Book now at Hilton.com. Hilton, for the stay. Refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
Are you dreaming of the perfect prom, but there's just one thing holding you back?
Speak English, Mom.
Welcome to EthnoSync, Ethnic Modification.
What is this place?
We help you reach your true potential. How are you feeling?
It's good to be white.
Hey, new girl.
Hey, look at what you've done to yourself.
For a new plant to grow, the seed has to die.
Slanted, rated R, only in theaters March 13th. Side effects may occur.
That didn't do it for me. And which is hysterical because I love the book. I'm loving it. And so it's just really funny. Like, I think it's just something that is unusual. The character is like super sassy or just something like that, where I guess a lot of adjectives. If you put a lot of adjectives into the marketing hook for it, I'm pretty sold.
Can I ask a craft question? Because I'm so in awe of your productivity. Like, what is your publishing journey? What is your writing day like? What is your routine like? And what is your publishing schedule like?
Yeah, well, I will tell you right now, it is so slow. And it has changed from what it used to be. So I used to be able to just like sit down and I would write 1, 2, 3,000 words a day and just like really just like breeze through and get it done. I would also tend to get stuck in the middle of books. And so I used to be more of a pantser, and I would know like the beginning, the middle, and the end. And that's about it. But now, like, my routine has changed. I tend to write more on weekends where I kind of like sit down and just like immerse myself into the story. I have maybe like 3-4 days of writing. I write close to like maybe 1,000 words in a session. If I'm having like a really good session, I'll write like 3,000, but that's about it. And I try to stay pretty consistent with it. But the one thing that has really helped me with like actually improving my process and writing a really solid first draft is actually spending some time brainstorming the book and plotting. And so I don't necessarily like to plot online or anything. I actually have a notebook where I just write down my ideals. And then what helps me too is like figuring out my characters and getting to know more about them. So I would typically write anywhere from like 10 to 20,000 words that are the beginning of the book that I actually end up tossing out. But it's more of like a warm up and just like a writing exercise. And so I do include that in like, oh, I wrote today, but it helps to like work towards the book by doing like some free writing and then also like plotting out like my scenes. And so now I actually do like a more in-depth plot where I actually have like 10 key plot points. Sometimes if I have lots of ideas, I'll go like chapter by chapter and then I'll actually sit down and write. And that really helps me like focus and get my writing done a lot faster. I used to write like, I don't know, 5, 6 books a year. I feel like I'm down to like 2, maybe 3, maybe that. I don't know. I've only written 1 this year, so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
And that's still pretty darn productive. I mean, it took me 8 years to write my first book, and now I'm like, I have to write the second one in maybe a year, and I'm just like, I'm pretty sure I can do this.
That's stressful. Yeah. Well, I mean, I will say, like, the first one it just took it out of me. And then writing epic fantasy, that was just that. I just feel like I cannot write epic fantasy ever again. Like my brain is just exhausted with the whole thought of it. And I definitely pushed through and got some stuff done, but I am just strictly against like burning out and trying to do more than I'm able to do. And so I just have stopped trying to like hustle and get things done. And I've slowed down to get things done in a way that just leaves me stress free, makes me just enjoy the process and just have peace about it. It's definitely a lot, but I've also discovered that as long as I'm meeting the word counts or like finishing different chapters and scenes in a timely manner, the book will get done. And so that is very, very helpful to think about. Like if I'm going to write a book that's 70,000 words, I just kind of work backwards and say, this is the deadline. This is how much I need to do every single month, every single week. And that really helps me not be stressed about it or feel like I'm going to burn out or have to like move my pre-order dates and stuff like that. So it's definitely, publishing has changed for me. I'm trying to make it more of something that's just really fun and I enjoy. And I worry less about marketability of it, but just really have fun doing things the way that I want to do them. And so with that, like whenever I release a book, like it's never going to be super high on Amazon. And so if someone looks at my books and that is their measure of success, it would seem like a failure to them. But it's because I do sell a lot direct. And so for me, it's a success. But I also know that people do like to shop on Amazon. They do like to go. And so I do need to make sure that I have that, keep that channel and keep my books available there. But I think selling direct it's just so much fun for me. I really enjoy that piece. And so that's made it a much more enjoyable process.
Wow, your process sounds so healthy.
Yeah.
It is. And it really is. I think one of the things with like social media and just being like so connected the way we are now, it makes it seem like people are doing so much and they're working so hard. And that is the only path to success. And I totally get it because I used to feel those pressures too when I was like, man, all these people are doing so much. They're tossing out all these books. They're really getting it done. And then realizing that, okay, but that's according to like their measure of success. And I definitely don't have to subscribe to that. Like my measure of success is, having like a happy life and not having to be stressed out because I missed like my self-imposed deadline. And that is one thing that is helpful about indie publishing. And I definitely have thought about, reaching out to agents and like querying and I just feel very intimidated by that process because I'm like, well, then I would I feel like I would have to hustle a little bit more than I do now. Now I give myself lots of breaks. And that definitely wasn't something that I used to do. But I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to work on this one book and it's going to be a shorter one. And readers are all going to say it was really short. And I'm going to be okay with that.
Of all the romances that you've written, what is the couple, series, or world that you fell hardest for and why?
Oh, okay. Tower Nights. I mean, this one is just like, it's so easy, no brainer. It all started with Music of the Night. And I realized I was like, I love this world. All the stories have like this underlying theme. And there is an evil sorceress who she got too much power and went to her head. She decided to curse all these knights that displeased her. And I mean, let's be real. A lot of them were pretty evil. So their punishments were warranted. And so she banished them from her land, tossed them through a portal, and, kind of like gave them this like mysterious curse. So in each book, you'll find out about a night that she cursed, what the curse is, and then like how these women that they fall in love with help them break that curse. And so that's like every single book. And I'm just obsessed. I love that so much. And then I need to write the reverse. And so that's like Betrayed Brides, which is what Mage Bride, that's the first standalone in that collection. It is the reverse. And so instead of like the men being wicked and evil, it's the women, like they have done something that's wrong in the eyes of society. And so they need to redeem themselves. And then they're also like betrayed by their husbands. And so I'm just so excited. Like that's kind of like the flip side of it. And so I'm like, I always look at the parallels when I'm writing, but Tower Knights, I love it. I'm working on the very last book in that collection, maybe the last one. I'm just obsessed.
I love a good female villain, though, and that is such an interesting challenge to make the heroine the villain that we fall in love with.
Yes. Yes, it is really fun. And I think I was pretty light on it in Music of the Night. But as I progress through the rest of the series, like you really just kind of really get into it and discover more about each like knight and where they come from. You actually do get to meet the sorceress too and just kind of have a face to face with her. And so that's really fun. I did have a reader ask me to write the story about the sorceress and maybe her love story. And I was like, oh, she's so wicked. I don't know.
I love a good, like, I don't want to call it ironic curse because that makes it sound lighter than it is, but I love a good curse to unravel where the punishment really does sort of fit something regarding the character, that as you're sort of uncovering the punishment, you're also uncovering so much about the character.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I know we have that, but a lot of times I feel like when I've read books where like the woman has done something, like she comes off as like a brat, and I just cannot handle that. And so I was like, I don't want to write women that are like, feel like they're bratty. Just trying to write it in a way. And I think I really accomplished that with Mage Bride, with the main character, Fira, like doing something that's absolutely outlawed and absolutely wrong. And just like the way that she deals with the fallout of it. And so I think she's very likable. So,
what are some of your favorite steamy, spicy sex tropes?
Oh, okay, let me think. I am not 100% sure. I just like love all the scenes. I just love when like, I know what it is. I love it when like he just like almost like worships her. And so like that is just kind of like one of the scenes. And there are different ways to do it, but I just love it when like the couple, they actually really love each other, actually really care about each other. It is not just because of this like physical desire. It goes a lot deeper than that. And I think books by Melissa Foster, those are like really good to read because they really all have that element in them where you can like really tell like the guy is just like, he's got her. He is no matter what. And he's just so generous.
That is beautiful. I'm writing the second book in my series now, and at this point they're together, and I'm just like, I kind of want to take that and make that really palpable and then blow it up. And then bring them back together, obviously.
I also really love the two people, one bed. Like, that's just my favorite, where it's just like, oh no, what's going to happen? The whole time they've been circling around each other, and now there's just the one bed.
A subtrope of that is only one blanket. When they're like stuck in a storm and they find a shelter, like it's a cave or something with only one blanket in it.
Yes. Oh, I love the one when like they fall into like ice or something and then like they have to like get warm real fast, build up the fire, toss off the clothes. Like that's perfect.
Right. And the thing that they have to do to keep warm is naturally strip out of their wet clothes and get under that blanket.
They need that body heat. What's your most unexpected favorite weird niche trope?
I really like it sometimes when the guy is just like this kind of awkward, kind of funny, like just really nice guy, because like the nice guy just like never gets the girl. And that is a trope. And so like every now and then when it unexpectedly happens, it's like really nice. And I love it when, like instead of like the dark hair and like the smoldering cheekbones and the eyes and stuff, like he's just like, maybe he has like freckles and maybe he has red hair and it's just like so unexpected, but then he's just like so amazing that you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is awesome." And so that is one of those like unexpected ones that it doesn't work every time, but when it does, it really works.
What's the name for that, Jen? Is that like the golden retriever hero?
It is. It's a golden retriever sort of cinnamon roll crossover hero where it doesn't always work, but sometimes it just does. And you're like, yeah, this guy is just, I can't explain it. He could be tall, dark, and handsome, but he could also have red hair and freckles or blonde hair or whatever. And you're just like, this would be a guy you wouldn't look twice at. But he just keeps consistently winning you over by being just this nice, compassionate guy who's not necessarily in it to score points with you or whatever. It's a guy who can communicate pretty decently, like who's thoughtful.
That sounds like a total fantasy, Jen.
I mean, it is romance. This is other people's fantasy.
That's right. It doesn't have to be realistic, okay?
It's the harder trope.
I am such a slut for villains in books. I just love that. I love villains. I love it when they're kind of mean. I love the enemies to lovers. I love infighting and then they can't keep their hands off each other. And I think the passion of that really just gets to me. But I also every so often like to be surprised in what I like, where I'm like, I didn't think I would like this, but I really like it, you know? And I think it's that surprise that every so often I meet a hero that I'm like, on paper didn't think I was going to love this, but I love it.
Yes. And that is like the really fun thing about reading. Like if someone says, okay, we got the golden retriever cinnamon roll, I'm sure like tons of readers would be like, hard pass. I want the mean guy. I want the villain. I want all of that. But you got to take a chance on it. You can't just like sit there and rely on tropes. You got to every now and then step outside and like do something unusual. And so I'm actually working on, it's really funny because I'm writing a villain romance and then I'm writing like, like the golden retriever and like he is such a dork and I'm loving it and it's hysterical. Like I'm just cracking up the whole time. Also like Grumpy Sunshine, that really works. But I love it when she's like grumpy and he's like all sunshiny and stuff. And it just...
I will say the reason the Golden Retriever works slightly better than Cinnamon Roll is like as a person who has a dog. Like I have a very small, yappy, silky terrier, which is like a Yorkie-ish. It's its own thing, but it looks like a Yorkie. That dog will literally kill someone for me. He will just like, he's like touch her and die to anyone who sees me all the time. And like, that is what you get with a Golden Retriever hero. I mean, obviously my dog is little and he can't do any damage.
Extreme loyalty. And you don't get the dangerous vibe. Like he doesn't lead with that.
He doesn't lead with the danger, but like, and you kind of get lulled into it. And then all of a sudden that Golden Retriever hero is like, oh no. You need to back the fuck off or I will kill you. And you're like, oh, he's got this whole swagger that I didn't see before.
Potentially a red flag in real relationships, which is, willing to kill people.
He doesn't lead, look, he doesn't lead with that. He leads with loyalty and compassion and communication. It's just, he doesn't want people to try and take his girl or hurt her in any way. There is a red flag there.
Well, speaking of red flags, I mean, Butcher and Blackbird, I mean, that is just a really fun read. If you need trigger warnings, they have them. So you can just like see if that's like something that you can stomach. But I really enjoyed that one. And I think because it was just so unexpected and so different from what I normally read. And I was like, well, I'm here for it.
I actually just bought that book. I haven't read it yet, but I live in New York City and they were doing like ads on the subway for that book. And I was just like, is this a book about two serial killers who fall in love? Because I am sold.
Yes. Like I can't remember the last time I saw a romance that said like two serial killers fall in love. That right there. I'm like, I don't even need tropes. So
I'm very much looking forward to reading that.
This has been so much fun. And I love hearing you talk about writing. I love your passion. It comes through in everything you say and in everything you write. And it's just such a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
And just your broadness, like you're so into so many different types of heroes and stories and you just cover so much. And I love that too.
Thank you. Well, I've been honored to be here. I mean, absolutely loved it. So thanks for having me on. It's been an absolute joy to talk to both of you.
Where can people find you and find out more information about your books?
Oh, yes. So everything is at my website, AngelaJ4.com. And I'm most active on Instagram. So Angela J. Ford Books. And that is it.
Don't forget, Mage Bride, Angela's most recent book, is out. Check it out.
Find out what she did to wind up in exile. I'm here for it.
I must learn more about this sexy Viking lord who is problematically single.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you.
I'm RJ Decker, private investigator, uncovering the Sunshine State's darkest secrets.
Tuesdays, it's the premiere of ABC's hottest new crime show.
RJ freaking Decker, as I live and breathe.
He's a private eye.
It's not a standard murder, it's something bigger.
And a public mess.
Trying to get sent back to prison today?
You go to prison one time and suddenly it's all the jokes.
RJ Decker, series premiere, Tuesdays on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Next week, whenever we see you next.